Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem. Amma ba'd. So, Alhamdulillah, thus far we discussed the chapter on najasa, the different najasa that contaminate water. We discussed the chapter on what is najasa khaliza or najasa khafifa. We discussed what is ma'a qalil, or discussed what is ma'a kathir, etc. So normally, if you look at the next bab now, it's faslun fil athari wa ghayriha, the chapter with regards to the left, or that's how it literally I'll say the leftover water and other things besides that. So we discuss when najasat falls in the water. We discuss when an animal itself falls in the water. So if you look at this masla about the leftovers of a animal, like you can say the water it drank from, it is very much related to the chapter of najasat, because like how other items that fall in the water, either it is najis or it is not najis. Like if urine fell in the water, or stool fell in the water, or ma'ik musta'mal fell in the water, or coke fell in the water, or whatever. So similar, when an animal drinks from something, right? It is that saliva of the animal that goes into the water. It is that saliva. So it is very similar to a contamination of pure water by an external force. So it is very much the same. It's very much related to that. You understand what I'm saying? So when the leftover water, or rather when an animal drank off from some water, then obviously the saliva would contaminate that water. Or if the animal ate on something and that leftover fell into the water, what is the law of that? Now, thus far we know, like how some animals, the flesh to consume is halal, is pure, spark. Same thing. Some animals' saliva, it's sur, is najis, and if it falls into the water, it will contaminate the water, right? So that is why Sahib Hidaayah is brought a separate chapter. So if you look at it, Faslun fil Athari. Athar actually sur. That is ibarat in Kuduri. Wasurul Adami wa ma yukalu lahmuhu tahirun, right? Athar, right? Which means leftovers. See? What is sa? Asar. I got Asari. Alif with the Qaraza Barisa. Let me see how it's in your kitab. Read it. Fil. Probably there's few ways you can read it, but as I said, that kitab is more authentic. We'll go with that. I got person fil Asari. But just check it up in this dictionary here. This what is this called? This is called Mu'jam al-Muhit. But you can check it later, inshallah, right? So this interesting, just briefly before we start the actual chapter, there are four different laws. One is with the sur, which is completely park, like that of a human being, and that of animals whose flesh is consumed. Then you get that which is makruh. Now makruh means it's not completely haram. That if that animal drank from you, we won't say you can't make wudu with it, but it's better not to make. And that is like the sur of a cat. The cat drank from the water, whatever, right? That's the second one. Then the third one is that sur which is completely najis, like according to Hanafi madhab, like a khinzir, or all the predatory animals, those animals that prey on other animals. Then the third one is what we call is mashkuk. Mashkuk here means we're not sure ourselves. We're not sure. One is don't confuse makruh with mashkuk. Remember this words, even though maybe it will help you in future also. It will help you in future also in other abwab. One is makruh, that it's permissible. You make wudu with it, your wudu will take place, etc. But it is better not to use it. It is better not to use it as makruh. Mashkuk means we totally lost. We don't know. We're not sure is it najis or is it park. We got no idea. That's mashkuk means. We got come again. Shak, yeah. Complete with right. I told you, and I mentioned to you in the past, and I mentioned again to you, and I'll mention again to you in the future. Sometimes the masla don't seem so relevant. Sometimes the masla don't seem so relevant, but there's so much you can learn. Other extra things. Read the first one. Look at this. وَأَرَقُ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ مُعْتَبَرٌ بِسُورِهَا. That the perspiration of everything is considered with its leftovers. What does that mean? Tell me in your own words, what does that mean? I gave you the literal translation. وَأَرَقُ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. The perspiration of everything is, you can say mu'tabar, it's like it's leftover. What does it mean? Tell me, what does it mean? Whatever the hukam of the leftover water is, that will be the hukam of the perspiration. Perfect. So if the saliva of an animal is pak, it is clean, that means the perspiration will also be clean. So you ride horse maybe, sometimes you went for a heavy ride cross country, the horse was perspiring, so that perspiration came onto your clothes. Will it be pak or not pak? It will be clean because the saliva of a horse is pak. Exact. This makes, you must consider horses ma yu'kalu lahmuhu, that which its meat can be eaten. Although if you look at the kutub while we're discussing this Muslim, certain places there's mentioned makruh to eat the horse meat, but there that is premised upon that is alatul jihad, is a means of jihad. So the reason why Imam Hanifa said is makruh to eat because it will result in taqlili alatil jihad, to result in the things for war, the implements of war becoming less. But today we don't use water so much. So according to the call of Imam Hanifa, there's no karahat. I know certain countries they say like if you go to Mongolia and those places, they like the horse meat a lot. Anyway, coming back to the main masla is this year. So any animal which its saliva is pure, right? That means its leftover water is pure. Then its perspiration is also pure. So you got a rabbit, you got a what's this rabbit? You got a sheep, a goat that you play with it. Perspire, that perspiration came onto you. You got a horse that you're riding, or you got a pet cow, you got a pet calf, or whatever. So, because its leftover water is pure, its perspiration is. You understood that? So, وَعَرَقُ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ مُعْتَبَرٌ بِسُورِهِ. He that the perspiration of everything, it's considered according to its leftover water. It is like the leftover water, right? Why? لأنهما يتولدان من لحمه. Because if you look at the أنهما refer to here to the perspiration and the saliva. What? يتولدان من لحمه. It comes, where does it come from? It comes from the flesh. It comes from the, you got maybe glands that produce your perspiration. You got glands that produce your saliva, etc. So it comes from the flesh. So if the flesh is halal, tahir, pure, that ma yu'kalu lahmu, that which you can eat it, then naturally it follows that these things that come from will also be pure. You understand? لأنهما يتولدان من لحمه فأخذ أحدهما حكم صاحبه. So the one of them two will take the law of the other. In other words, the perspiration and the saliva will take the law of the what? Of the flesh. Read the next one. Right. It's very interesting, Masla, and very relevant, Masa. وَسُورُ الْآدَمِ وَمَا يُؤْكَلُ لَحْمُهُ طَاهِرٌ. The leftover of a human being, وَمَا يُؤْكَلُ لَحْمُهُ, and what that its flesh is eaten, طَاهِرٌ, it is pure. Interesting, very interesting, Masla. So, if you see somebody drinking from something, right? Like even if it's a non-Muslim, even if it's a non-Muslim, that will be pure. Unless you know for certain there's some najasat, you saw there's najasat on the person's mouth, you saw this person is drinking alcohol, and immediately after he drank the alcohol, he drank from the water. Now you say the water is najis. But until then, you won't say it's najis. And then there's another masla here, it will be explained in the kitab. I explained it before the time. Remember, if a person is in janabat, a man, he had a wet dream, or he had a husband-wife relationship. Remember, we say he's in halat al-janaba, that najasat is hukmi. It's not a physical najasat. It's not something. So if he drinks from water, it doesn't make the water najis. Even if a woman is in najasat, in janaba, whether it's through husband-wife relationship, or she had a dream, or maybe even she's in hayd, she's hayd, she's having a monthly menses, or maybe she gave birth and she's, what you call her, she's having nifas, she's nafisa, right? So there, if she drank from the water, that is the jasat ya hukmi. That is, so you will not say it is. If she drank from the water, even though her saliva went into the water, etc., you won't say it is najis, right? So see that wasul adami, the leftover of a human being. So remember, we say the flesh of a human is not najis, but the reason why you can't consume it is out of honor and respect for a human being, right? Just follow. We discuss this in detail. وَسُورُ الْآدَمِيِّ, the leftover of a human being. وَمَا يُؤْكَلُ لَحْمُهُ, and that which is flesh in the is pure. Why? لِأَنَّ الْمُخْتَلَطَةَ بِهِ اللُّعَابُ, because the saliva that mixes with it, وَقَدْ تَوَلَّدَ مِنْ لَحْمٍ طَاهِرٍ, it is originates from pure flesh. So the animal which is flesh is pure. Remember, the flesh itself is pure. It's only the blood in which is najis. And once the blood is removed, it becomes pure. Remember, we discussed it. I told you several times. Remember, I told you that even if you take a lion or you take a tiger and you shed all the blood from it, the flesh become pure. Remember, we discussed this last time. To such an extent, you can feed it lion meat, you can feed the tiger meat to your pet that you don't eat it. Remember. So the flesh itself is pure. The skin itself is pure, the sinew itself is pure, etc., etc., etc. It's only the najis liquids in it which makes it najis, right? Are you with me? So that's why we'll say, right. So so the flesh itself is pure. It is just the blood, etc., that is in there, right? So the animal like a sheep, a goat, right? The flesh is pure, and the saliva comes from it, so it will be pure. Are you with me? That's what he's saying. And then a human being's flesh is also pure. So the saliva and the perspiration that comes from it will also be pure. That's what he's saying. لأن المختلطة به اللعاب. Right? The thing which lu'ab means what? The saliva mixes with it. Right? Right? وقد تولد. It comes, is originates من لحم طاهر, from pure flesh. فيكون طاهرا, so it will be pure. You understood that? Yeah. ويدخل في هذا الجنوب والحائض والكافر. So the fact that a human being's flesh is pure, right? And the saliva comes from his flesh. That would mean the saliva is pure because the flesh is pure, right? So that we understand why في هذا الجواب, it enters in this text. الجنوب, a person is حالة الجنابة, والحائض, a lady is experiencing menses, والكافر, and a kafir. So technically speaking, it is pure, right? So just on this here, there's another masla, a separate masla, that If a ghayr mahram, somebody that you can marry in Islam, that is not your relative brother, if they eat and drink or something, then technically speaking, that is pure, as you can understand from here, it's pure, but it's not appropriate from a ghayr mahram because it will be a cause of fitna. If a young person, young lady, maybe eat from something now, when you eat in your mind think, oh, this person's lips touch on this thing, this person's tongue touch this thing, this person's saliva is here. So there's a karat in that, but not because it is najis, but the karat is because of what? Because of the fear of fitna. Although it's not haram, it's not najis, it's just because of fear of fitna. Right, okay, read the next ibarat. Right. Wasurul kalbi najisun. That if a dog drank from something which is najis, right? ويغسل الإناء من ولوغه ثلاثا. So when a dog drank from something, the utensil ويغسل الإناء من ولوغه from which he drank, right? It will be washed 3 times. It will be washed as a result. So wuluhi means you say like this because of its because of its drinking from there, or because of or like, wuluh, because of its entering its tongue into that thing into that utensil. The actual utensil also has to be washed 3 times. That's what he's saying, right? The water obviously you'll dispose of, right? Yeah, because there's an express hadith, يغسل الإناء من ولوغ الكلب ثلاثا, that utensil will be washed from the uh, licking of a dog, whatever, 3 times. When a from you can say it means to put your mouth in ulugh means from putting his mouth in it will be washed 3 times, right? So if the question comes about why must you wash the utensil when we know the dog is actually drinking the water? There's the answer. وَلِسَانُهُ يُلَاقِ الْمَاءَ. The tongue of the dog actually touches the water, right? يُلَاقِ الْمَاءَ. دون الإناء, not the utensil, right? But فَلَمَّا تَنَجَّسَ الْإِنَاءُ فَالْمَاءُ أَوْلَى. So, yeah, Nabi Sallallahu is saying that you must wash the utensil. So when Nabi Sallallahu said you must wash the utensil, it means the utensil became najis. And if the utensil became najis, obviously the water became najis. How is it that the utensil can become najis, but the water won't become najis? You understand what I'm saying? So by Nabi Sallallahu saying you must wash the utensil, naturally it follows. Naturally, it follows that the water also became najis. So the you understood the reasoning what they're saying there. They're saying it is actually the utensil, the Nabi is saying the utensil become najis. So if the utensil become najis by the dog drinking from the water, that means obviously the water is the conduit to transfer the najasa to utensil. So obviously the water also becomes najis, right? Carry on. Yeah. So وهذا الحديث يفيد النجس. This hadith is clear that the water becomes najis. Even though the hadith is not saying directly, but you understand, right? Yeah. So now there is another hadith that say when the dog touches something or when the dog drinks from something, you must wash it 7 times, right? So there is, but we say it's coming in the kitab that I explained before the time. We say that in the initial stage of Islam, the Arabs used to love dogs. They were very fond of dogs. So in the initial stage of Islam, just to create that abhorrence in the heart of the Arabs, Nabi must wash it 7 times. Similar like, you've done this in Mishkat Sharif, those utensils that were used to manufacture the alcohol in the initial stage of Islam, it was not even allowed to use those utensils for halal drinks, for pure drinks. It was to create that abhorrence for alcohol. So same thing, we say in the initial stage of Islam, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam spoke about it being washing it 7 times, but this was mansukh, it was abrogated by the hadith that says later on you only have to wash it 3 times, and here we got that wal adad, and the amount fil khasin washing wa hujjatun ala shafi'i, it is a proof against Imam Shafi fi ishtirat sab'i, in his baking condition, he must wash it 7 times, right? Carry on. So that is our nakli proof, our proof from the text to say that you only have to wash it 3 times. That we've got the hadith and we say the hadith of 7 is abrogated, right? Carry on. Yeah. This is a logical proof. They say, look here, what has a stronger smell? The dog's urine or the dog's saliva? Huh? The urine. To such an extent, you see the people, the white people, they'll kiss the dog's mouth, but they won't kiss the place where the urine comes from out. So what does it show you? That the saliva doesn't, it's not considered as bad as the urine. So they say, look here, that you people say that when the dog's urine touch something, you only have to wash it 3 times. And the urine is much, much more stronger than the saliva. But you don't say you must wash, but you say you must wash the saliva 7 times. Doesn't make sense. It shows you that this is abrogated. This hukam of 7 times was just in the initial stage of Islam to create an abhorrence. That's what he's saying. وَلِأَنَّ مَا يُصِيبُهُ بَوْلُهُ. Because that which the urine afflicts it, يَطْهُرُ بِالثَّلَاثِ. It becomes clean by 3. فَمَا يُصِيبُ سُورُهُ. So that which the sur afflicts it, وَوَدُونَهُ, which is less than it, أولى, it is more worthy. It must also become pure by more worthy. أولى يعني, it is more worthy that it becomes pure by just washing it 3 times. You understood that? Get on. Yeah. Well, Amrul Waridu, the instruction that speaks about 7 times, Mahmulun al-Ibtida Islami. That was in the initial stages of Islam, just to create that abhorrence in the heart of the believers for the dogs. Once that was now created and the detestability of that settled in the heart of the believers, now the law changed back to 3. Like I told you, you were doing Mishkat Sharif, that those utensils that were used to manufacture alcohol in the beginning of Islam, it wasn't even allowed to use them, just to show you that, to impress upon the people that this is something which is highly disliked, right? Yeah. Then the leftover water of a pig, it is najis. لأنه نجس العين على ما, because we know everything about the pig is najis. So if everything about the pig, obviously saliva also be najis. And if he drank from something, saliva went into the, and then without it out, that will also be najis, right? The time is up. We'll stop there. We will continue tomorrow, inshallah. Subhanallah, bihamdihi, subhanakallah, bihamdihi.